Okay, folks, welcome back to the channel, the Autodidacts Forum. Today, we're going to be talking all about the social aspect around why, young people, millennials and Gen Z have moved more right-wing over the last 10 or 15 years or so. I'm going to be speaking a bit about my personal experience as well as sort of like everybody's experience. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So why are so many people turning to the right wing? Why are people who were lifelong liberals now conservative? People like Dave Rubin, Tulsi Gabbard, Joe Rogan, RFK Jr., and even Donald Trump himself. In short, an obsessive witch hunt to root out all people guilty of wrongthink has been going on in the left wing for over a decade now. You don't like OnlyFans? You're out. You think illegal immigration is a little too rampant? You're out. You think small businesses will be destroyed by constant minimum wage increases? You're out. You think that actually people tend to be happier in traditional relationships and nuclear families? You're out. You think kids should only be taught about sex and gender by their parents and not ideologues at school? You're out. There's a popular diagram that went around the internet recently that illustrates this perfectly. This diagram depicts diversity of thought in each wing, and as you can see, the right wing has a much wider umbrella of thought than the left wing. Even the pillars of conservatism are more diverse and ambiguous. Do you think illegal immigration is bad or flat out all immigration? Let's talk. Do you think tariffs are good or bad? Let's talk. Do you think various drugs should be legal or illegal? Let's talk. You're socially liberal but fiscally conservative? Let's talk. If you're a conservative and you have liberal friends or family, then you've gone through what the rest of us have. In my experience, when talking to a liberal, I am calm and just engaging in the conversation. To them, it's a winner-takes-all knockdown, drag-out fight. They think they are the default, obviously and heroically correct person, so when they get challenged on their beliefs, they think they're under assault by some kind of evil person, or if they're more charitable, an evil thought process. We saw liberals having to come to grips with this when they were doing their post-mortem of the 2024 election. They said, maybe we shouldn't call everybody, racist, xenophobic, homophobic fascists after 10 years of having done it. It's a little late for that after you cut off grandpa from your life for saying, maybe, trans women shouldn't compete in women's sports. My little gender fluid sibling asked my dad if he would ever date a trans woman, and my dad said no because I'm not gay. And this was like a right hook to my little sibling. Like, I'm sorry, maybe he should have used your language and said, no, I don't prefer to engage with girl cocks. Maybe that would have worked, I don't know. I had the young women in my family walking around the house saying stuff like men are trash. But if I and my friends would say anything about women, we'd get disgusted looks and some kind of liberal talking to. I didn't even know that women could be bad growing up. My first two adult girlfriends treated me really horribly. They walked all over me, and I put them on a pedestal and allowed them to do it. I've had my own family members say to me verbatim that I'm a straight white man, so my opinion doesn't matter. Even recently, when talking to some of my family members about the Charlie Kirk assassination, which some of my siblings were absolutely terrible about, my mother said to me, you're a white man, so you can't understand. And that came from a white woman who had white children with white men and has a white wife. Like, because I'm white, I'm some kind of retarded second-class citizen, that can't stand to use reason. Ideas stand or fall based on their own merits, not whether a white man or a black woman or a Chinese they-them is saying it. But anyways, just think about how it makes a person feel when their own family members are gleeful or, celebrating or defending the celebration of people over, a guy's assassination whose points you tend to agree with. I don't necessarily feel tribalistic about it all. But it's like when you otherize people, don't be surprised when you've created the other tribe. The leftists have been harnessing identity politics for more than 20 years and are now surprised that white men are harnessing it too. When white women start to emphasize their 0.5% indigenous DNA and their 2% European Spanish as a means to not identify as white, you know there's something wrong. So there's an ongoing talking point in leftist echo chambers that the Overton window has shifted to the right when the opposite is actually true. Any sane person can see the political direction that America has gone in the last 20 years. More immigration, the advent of DEI and other exclusionary practices, as well as looking at the donor class and what political party they tend to invest in. Obama was responsible for more deportations than Trump has ever been responsible for. You can find videos, and I remember seeing them on TV when he was saying them, of Obama talking about illegal immigration and how it needed to be curbed. He would say stuff that people said later on Donald Trump was racist for saying, like that you can't have a country without having borders. Biden in 2008 said that he and Obama were against gay marriage and that marriage was between one man and one woman in 2008. The Overton window has shifted so far to the left that we now have a communist mayor in New York City. And yes, he's a communist. He's not just a democratic socialist, as the media would like to portray him as. Here's a quote from Mamdani in a CNN article about his democratic socialism. Quote from Mamdani, "The many things that we believe, some of them are already popular in this moment right now, right? If we're talking about the cancellation of student debt, if we're talking about Medicare for all, these are issues which have the groundswell of popular support across this country. But then there are also other issues that we firmly believe in, whether it's boycott, divestment, and sanctions, right? Or whether it's the end goal of seizing the means of production, where we do not have the same level of support at this very moment. If you're talking about seizing the means of production, you're a communist. I don't care how you mislabel yourself. And I get it myself, 10 years ago, I was a staunch Bernie Sanders supporter, and I don't agree with much of what he has to say now. I've kind of gone over an evolution in my time. Many of us young people, I was like 20 at the time, we were taken with Bernie's ability to call out to corruption at the highest levels of government. During that time, all of the liberal people I knew who supported Hillary Clinton called us Bernie bros and said we were spoiling the election for Hillary Clinton. Now, to us Bernie bros, we thought that Hillary Clinton was the real spoiler, and honestly, I still think so. I mean, here you have good-natured, anti-racist, gay and trans rights supporters backing a lifelong corporate parasite like Hillary Clinton. People who held all the correct social opinions were telling us that their warhawk lawyer girl boss, Hillary Clinton, who called black people super predators, was better than Donald Trump because he was racist, and better than Bernie Sanders, who supported the civil rights movements in the 60s. After Bernie Sanders dropped out and endorsed Hillary Clinton, the Bernie bros had nowhere to go. We were just passive observers, and a lot of us observed Donald Trump. He was talking about Epstein. He was talking about the donors behind our politicians, and he was talking about our involvement in Iraq and how it was a travesty. Then you would go to CNN and watch it do its 24/7 smear campaign on Donald Trump, taking everything he said out of context. I didn't vote for Donald Trump then, and I have never voted for Donald Trump for reasons I will go into in another future video. But I could see back then that he was the favored candidate. At the time, I had a black girlfriend who had a black father who was obsessed with race relations. He had newspaper clippings going back like 80 years covering the walls in his kitchen. And those newspaper clippings were all stories on like white on black crime and hate crimes and stuff like that. He was a Black Panther when he was a young man. He ended up in the military and then further on worked in the IRS. He supported Donald Trump. He was a well-informed, intelligent man who knew all about the Clinton Foundation scam in Haiti and what Joe Biden was saying about black people in the 1980s. I had many hours-long conversations with him that were really eye-opening for me. The scam that was the Democratic Party, the destruction of the black community via welfare, single motherhood, the importation of immigrants to keep their voter base strong, the promise of free goods and free things to accrue more voters, and the identity politics they were playing to galvanize a tribalistic base. The 2020 lockdowns were another point of jumping off for a lot of previous liberals. The media narrative surrounding it said they told us that it was bat soup in China that caused COVID. Anyone who researched the situation even a small amount knew that COVID came from a joint US and Chinese bioweapons research facility in Wuhan, China. The man overseeing all joint US and foreign bioweapons research was Anthony Fauci. Then they made Anthony Fauci the spokesman for the vaccine and like COVID in general. What a joke played right in our faces. Anyone who brought up this information online was shadow banned or outright banned and labeled a conspiracy theorist. Come to find out, years later now, the official narrative supports the Wuhan, China lab leak theory. That's what CNN did a bunch of bits on this like a year ago or so. The absolute freak out at the time of, the public when just talking to them about it was palpable. If you spoke to anyone in LA about this information, they would look at you like you were a leper. And it's just so crazy to me because, Gen X were like punks against the man. They questioned the narrative surrounding Iraq. They questioned the media. They questioned the CIA and their operations. And then they just became people who took what the media was saying at face value. What an abject failure. Millennials did no better. My generation, we spoke about the US government's crimes against us, against the black community, Big Pharma's influence, and then we just ate up the narrative because CNN said Donald Trump was racist for calling it the Wuhan flu, and you didn't have Don Lemon on CNN saying it was all, a fake and it came from the Wuhan lab. So I don't know what happened, but, millennials just ate it right up. All of these events contributed to a war of attrition in which regular people living their lives, going to work, getting their news from clips on Facebook and Instagram, ended up forming a certain opinion, and anybody who actually did a small amount of research fell to the right wing. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a Republican. I don't support the Republican Party, especially as they've been taken by neoconservatives. They're now Bush administration 2.0 at this point. And, they also contribute to this Overton window going to the left because conservatives don't conserve anything. What happens is the left wing takes us further and further to the left, and then Republicans win a primary, they win the election, and just keep us right here. And then the left wins and brings us over and over, and the right wins, keeps us here, and it goes on like this. This is the cycle of the pole of the left wing over, decades and decades. Lame duck Republicans care more about the opinions of their donors in big tech and the military-industrial complex than they care about the American people's opinions. Take the H-1B visa fiasco, for example. Donald Trump ran, and other Republicans ran, on bringing jobs back to American people. And, then when Donald Trump came up with the idea of getting rid of or revising the H-1Bs, Elon Musk went to Twitter and said, anybody who wants to take away my cheap Indian labor force can go fuck themselves. He had a huge freak out. And what happened? Donald Trump didn't stand up to it. He just stepped back, and we still have H-1B visas. No big deal. Elon Musk isn't even American. But anyways, I'll save my big Republican takedown for another video. But as Bill Maher has sort of pointed out on his show over and over again, as the left continues to move left, people who were centrists end up outside of the left wing through no political movement of their own. Naturally, those people look right wing to left wingers. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked the video, please hit the like button down below. Send it to someone you know, share it with someone you don't. And if you feel like you received a certain amount of value out of this video, you can tip me down below at the link with Ko-Fi. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next one.